Hey there guys, I'm back to another game review. Today I'm here to talk about Sonic Superstars on the PlayStation 5. Classic Sonic is back with 3D graphics, new zones, and first-time co-op gameplay. Fans will be pleased to hear that the game is enjoyable from start to finish with challenging boss fights. However, while the game is attempting to introduce a lot of new and exciting ideas for the franchise, Sonic Superstars falls short in some of these aspects, especially in its post-game content. With its price at $60, is the game really worth it? Let's talk about it. Full spoilers for Sonic Superstars gameplay and story.
The story is told through these animated cutscenes. They're only present in the beginning and the end of campaigns, but I always love seeing animated Sonic stuff, especially if it's classic Sonic. Eggman is using these large flickies to cause trouble. Sonic and friends catch wind of this and plan to stop Eggman in his tracks, hiring Fang and Trip to stop Sonic and Co., and now we have an adventure. Depending on who you choose to play as, the story will start off differently. As Sonic and Tails fly in on the tornado, Knuckles is resting on Angel Island and decides to tag along. Recent classic Sonic stories have never been amazing. I don't remember anything from Sonic Mania, but the gameplay is what kept me in. This game's story is kind of confusing. It's the good old Sonic vs. Eggman again, but what is Eggman doing exactly? I couldn't figure that out. How does Fang fit into the picture aside from some nostalgia fan service? Well, he's barely in the game, which is disappointing. I wish he was stopping Sonic and Co. more often in the form of mini bosses in certain zones and not these magnets. They're fine bosses, but Fang was advertised as such a huge part of Sonic Superstars, and he's only present during the final bosses and parts of Trip's story. Speaking of Trip, I do wish we got more of her. We get a whole story mode for her, and yet I still know nothing about her. She's a lizard, but how did she get tangled up with Fang and Eggman? What made her switch teams? Just like with Fang, she's heavily advertised for Sonic Superstars, and nothing seemed to become of her. I know the story isn't why people are going to be playing Sonic Superstars, but it's quite confusing and doesn't have a clear narrative. Stuff just happens, and you sort of go along with it. I may not remember much of Sonic Mania's story, but Sonic Superstars isn't even trying. Now for the gameplay of Sonic Superstars, it's fine. There's 3 campaigns in total: Story Mode, Trip Story, and Last Story. They unlock one after the other. Story Mode lets you play as one of the 4 playable characters: Sonic, Tails, Amy, or Knuckles. They all control how you would expect, with Sonic being the basic character while his friends have special abilities. Tails can fly, Knuckles can glide and climb up walls, and Amy has her hammer. The physics are good enough. They aren't buttery smooth like Sonic Mania, but they're passable if you don't pay attention to the physics too much. I noticed the difference in the physics when the spin dash can't take you up slopes like in the previous games. This is supposed to be your move to upstart your momentum, and it's somewhat lacking. Bouncing off of a spring will take you much further than the spin dash ever will. The Chaos Emeralds now grant Emerald Powers, a special ability that players can use during the levels. Each color has their own unique abilities, such as turning into a fireball, swimming underwater better, or summoning clones of yourself. I would say half of them are actually useful to take down enemies and bosses, while the others are useless and super situational. Bosses will drop like a fly if you spam the Emerald abilities at the correct times. Avatar and Bullet are the most useful, with the occasional Slow to get a hit in. The problem with Slow is there's no way to cancel it early, meaning you have to sit around and wait for the Emerald Power to finish. That's dumb. Another thing about the Emerald Powers is that you need them to advance Trip's story. If you don't have Slow, which is, I believe, the 6th Chaos Emerald, you can't get past Pinball Carnival Zone as Trip. I did not have all the Chaos Emeralds at this point because they got increasingly difficult after the 4th Emerald. Difficulty increases as you progress, I get that. But these special stages are something else. Oh my god, you have to catch up to the Chaos Emerald as you swing across the floating rings with your tether. Momentum is key while dodging projectiles and collecting rings to stay in the stage. It feels completely random if I pass a special stage by pure luck, or I have to work my butt off to get the Chaos Emerald. There's no method to the special stage's madness. Just keep swinging towards it until you get close enough to collect it. There are these rings that you can enter to gain distance, but not every special stage has them. Even then, the Emerald Powers are underwhelming because they are on such a long cooldown after using them. It feels pointless to use them when it's better to save them for the boss ahead. Rings do the same thing, where as long as you have one of them, you can take a hit. However, there's no lives, which is a good thing for the later parts of the game. If you do collect 100 rings, you receive a medal, which can be exchanged for really expensive cosmetics in battle mode. I mean, seriously, it costs 10 medals for a color, and that's only for one part. So, if you want your entire character to be pink, it's going to cost you 40 medals for the head, body, arms, and legs. Why? Battle mode itself is fine. It's inoffensive, but it's not something I would go out of my way to get my friends to play. This is the only mode that has online, and for good reason, because the local multiplayer is a mess. For a Sonic team to make this game with the intent to try out multiplayer 2D Sonic gameplay, they for sure screwed it up here. It's kind of crazy how bad it is with just 2 players. Sonic Superstars has a hard time figuring out who to follow, whether it's the player that's ahead or the player who just fell down the level. There's no clear indicator who the camera is going to follow. And this is just 2 players. I've seen footage of 4-player multiplayer look outright unplayable, with even more bugs and glitches infecting the experience. While you can play multiplayer in Sonic Superstars, don't. Play the game by yourself first, and then torture yourself with the multiplayer. This being a key reason to make Sonic Superstars as a game, and for the final multiplayer experience to be like this, my lord, what the hell happened here? Hopping into Super Mario Bros. Wonder made me realize how much better the multiplayer experience is here, because the crown player is the one the camera will follow, but I digress. The bosses in story mode are fine. They're manageable, with later bosses giving you trouble later on. I enjoyed the challenge the boss fights brought to the table in story mode because they're not hair-pulling difficult, but you're not defeating them on your first encounter. The zones are completely new naming-wise, but they share the same themes as before. From Bridge Island Zone to Pinball Carnival Zone, it's places Sonic fans have seen before with some new bells and whistles. 11 zones in total, with most having 2 acts and a boss fight to finish it off. It'll take you about 4 to 5 hours to finish story mode, which isn't too bad. If Sonic Superstars was just story mode, I'd say the game is like a 7 out of 10 and well worth playing for Sonic fans. Maybe not a $60 game, but definitely $30 at most. Well, the game doesn't finish here. After the main adventure, you unlock Trip's story. It's pretty much New Game Plus on a harder difficulty. Trip's ability is a double jump and she can latch onto walls. It helps in her story mode because the level design is completely different for every single level. Because of this, in addition to the increased difficulty, Trip's story easily triples the playtime of Sonic Superstars from 4 hours to 12 hours in total. I kid you not, Trip's story is very hard because the level design adds bottomless pits, spikes, and a slew of other hazards to watch out for. Also, the slow emerald power requirement is still stupid. I can see why they wanted you to collect all the Chaos Emeralds, because Trip's final boss against the Fang Mecha is stupid difficult. I was literally stuck on this fight for like over 2 hours because of how hard the fight is. The first phase is fine, but the phase after that is where it gets really difficult. There's so many projectiles and hazards that can just one-shot you, and to do this for the first time during the final boss of Trip's story, absolutely insane. The Emerald powers will help in getting free hits in on Fang, and they refresh after each phase. I do like that it's a brand new fight against Fang, but the fight itself shows the problems overall the boss fights have in Sonic Superstars. For one, there's a lot of downtime between opportunities to hit the boss, so it becomes tiresome after many attempts. 2, the boss is just outright glitchy. When the ant badniks spawn, you have to hit them before they land to get a hit onto Fang's robot. However, sometimes the ants just don't register. I hit them, but it doesn't count as damage to Fang. This makes the boss fight last longer because this is one of your few opportunities to hit Fang before you have to dodge projectiles again. These traps are stupid, but it's possible to mash out of them. The Cork that legit one-shots you is stupid as hell. Anything that one-shots you should have been introduced sooner, especially if it's the final boss of the story. Trip's story could have easily been better if it was shorter, selecting certain zones/levels. Having the player essentially replay the game all over again after just finishing it makes no sense. The difficulty spike is fine until the final boss, where its glitchy state makes it even harder. If you choose to skip Trip's story, that's fine. It's just that you're missing out on a major half of the game that costs you $60. So, if you're not playing Trip's story, you're not finishing Sonic Superstars to its full potential. When you finish Trip's story, that's when you unlock Last Story. It's the true final boss of the game, but it is just as stupid as the Fang Mecha. Its name is Black Dragon, which is like, where did they come from? The story somewhere probably, hopefully, explained it, but I don't know where this Black Dragon came from. The boss fight has you play as Super Sonic, battling it out as you dodge his projectiles and land hits when an opportunity opens. Getting hit only dazes you for a few seconds, and you only have to worry about your rank count being higher than 0. Black Dragon once again shows the issues with boss fights in Sonic Superstars by having the player sit around and wait for an opportunity to attack as you dodge projectiles and collect rings. And the way you get rings is poorly designed as well. You have Tails or Knuckles fly across your screen dropping rings behind them. If you touch them, they give you bonus rings, which is like 10 rings or so. This is really good to keep the fight going, but at times when they come back in to assist, a scripted cutscene will pull you in to a new view as you dodge Black Dragon's black holes or projectiles, canceling the ring help, and you miss out on an opportunity to get more rings. This is extremely frustrating because you can do everything right but have a low ring count by the second or third phase because the game cuts off the ring help too soon. You don't know exactly when Tails or Knuckles will appear on screen. I do like that Tails' tornado engine goes off when he's on screen as an additional audio indicator that he's here to help. Knuckles has no audio indicator, so you'll likely miss his appearance if you're not diligent enough going back and forth across the screen. Stupid design all around when you can just reward the player with rings each time you hit the boss. It is nice to see Tails and Knuckles help with the final boss, but the way it's implemented is not functional. Also, the way the boss is designed is just perplexing. Like, why does he throw all these projectiles, but the ones that you can hit are not on your screen at all times because of the open area? Then, the way the black holes work is that if you're in the center, you die instantly. If the black hole spawns on you, you're dead. This is just a stupid mechanic. At least let me mash my way out of it or something. I'm already under pressure from the ring count, requiring me to have near perfect inputs against Black Dragon is frustrating. You cannot mess up during any of your opportunities to hit. Otherwise, you're wasting time, and wasting time means you're wasting your rings to finish the fight. The final phase, if you can even call it that, switches Sonic from a sideways view to a frontal position. You have to press these QuickTime events correctly to block the meteors. Otherwise, the cycle restarts and you lose more rings as time goes on. No more random rings in sight, and Tails and Knuckles might swing by, but it's very unlikely. Having like 10 rings during this part is near impossible because he throws like 5 or 6 boulders at you. I only got past this part because I was already going at it for over 3 hours at this point. Also, the reticle to show the QTE did not show up properly when I first fought it. I thought I was bugging or something, but the game was the one that was bugging. The reticle did not show up properly, making this final phase impossible to pass. At this point, I wasn't even mad because of how stupid the Fang mecha was. I'm kind of numb to Sonic Superstars' absurd post-game modes because they really padded this game out to charge $60. I would much rather have Sonic Team polish the physics out and fix the multiplayer than redesign every level for Trip and cook up these two final bosses. Sonic Superstars quickly became a bad Sonic game because of the unneeded padding from Trip's story and Last Story. On the presentation side, it's actually not that bad. The game looks pretty good, and I did not run into that many glitches during story mode. The multiplayer straight up breaks the game, and the final bosses are glitchy at times, making them harder to complete without losing one's sanity. Fans have been comparing Sonic Superstars' soundtrack to Sonic the Hedgehog 4, which I honestly don't see. I kind of liked the music of this game when I was playing it, and I didn't have an issue with it. Maybe some tracks weren't as great as others, but it's still Sonic music. The game runs at 60 FPS on the PlayStation 5, which is nice. The character models and environments all look good. I really like the 3D character model style, even though I still like the classic retro style of Sonic Mania. The further you get into Sonic Superstars, the more glitchy the game gets. But for story mode and the overall presentation, no complaints here.
Sonic Superstars tries to introduce multiplayer, 3 different story modes, and new characters, but a lot of it feels incomplete. I really wish the game took its time to flesh out Trip and Fang's return. They're in the story, but I don't know how or why they're here. Padding the game out with Trip's story and Last Story is ridiculous. They really wanted to charge fans $60, and the extra content here is not fun and most certainly not worth your time. The difficulty spike experience in the final bosses are not anything I recommend players try out because they are not designed well and have glitches making them even more difficult to finish. They could have easily dropped the game to $20 to $30 without Trip's story and polished the multiplayer. Instead, we have a $60 mess that has no clear narrative, a worthless multiplayer mode, and final bosses that will take more than 6 hours to complete. That's longer than the story mode, by the way. I hope Sonic Team takes notes from this game's shortcomings and learns what to do for future classic Sonic games. We had some really great ideas here with Trip, Fang, and the multiplayer, but all of them were poorly executed. I cannot recommend Sonic Superstars at $60. If you find it for $30 at most and you're still curious about it, go for it. Otherwise, you can skip this title and go back to playing Sonic Mania again. It is not worth your time and not worth your money. But yeah, that is all I have for today. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Thank you guys for watching. If you guys want more videos like this, consider hitting the like button and subscribing. I upload new videos on Saturdays. You can check out my social media pages at TV Sonic Gaming. I'm on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, pretty much everything. And if you want to check out my podcast called The Travis and Damon Podcast, we talk about games, movies, and anime every other week. I believe on episode 124, we do talk about Sonic Superstars in pretty big length. But yeah, that is all I have for today. Thank you guys for watching this video once again. And I'll see you guys next time with more videos.